Hi, it's Jill Sprott here with this week's Storytellers feature from Two Peas in a Bucket. There are lots of ways of telling stories, and they need not all be lengthy or detailed. A few years ago, a trend known as currents started in the blogosphere, and it quickly caught on in the scrappy world. The idea is to create a simple snapshot via a list that shares what you've been thinking and doing lately. It's actually a great approach to use on a layout. Such a layout pulls together the fragments that may seem trivial or disconnected and unifies them. The result is a page out of the story of your life. Pictures and words complement each other on a currents-based layout, so I began with a series of 6 photos, each of which was taken on the same day. I sized the photos to 1 by 1.25 inches when I realized that they would work perfectly with one of the new Wonderlust transparency sheets from Studio Calico. I just love the idea of tucking photos and other little bits behind each one of those little frames. As I looked ahead to my journaling, this month's mood board from Two Peas in a Bucket proved to be a great help. The rectangular cards to the right caught my eye immediately, and I decided to present my journaling in a similar way. I began the journaling by generating a list of ing words. The idea is to imagine starting a sentence with lately or currently I have been, and then just go about completing that sentence in all the ways that you can imagine that pertain to you right here, right now. Some of these words are based on observable things like eating and reading and watching, while others are more internal, like wondering and hoping and worrying. After composing my journaling, I printed it out on these Project Life cards. They come 100 to a pack, so I'll be getting a lot of mileage out of these. With the journaling done, I turned my attention towards selecting supplies to use on the layout. I once again looked at the mood board from Two Peas and noticed a lot of pinks, purples, and blues that caught my eye, and so I selected supplies accordingly. This was a great opportunity for me to finally put some of my new goodies to use, so I pulled out some die-cut pieces as well as a variety of pattern papers from Crate Paper, Dear Lizzie, Studio Calico, and Amy Tangerine. One of those papers is from the Crate Paper Love Notes collection, and although I wasn't planning to use it on the layout, you'll see later how it inspired me to actually alter the background paper. That background paper, incidentally, is from the Style Board collection from Crate Paper. It's one of my favorite pieces ever. Here I'm just kind of tweaking the design to see where I'm going with it. And I wasn't quite sure what the final product would look like, but I knew that on one side I wanted to include the embellished photo block, and on the other side the journaling cards. And so as I was planning to put the little pictures underneath that transparency frame, I knew it would be a little difficult just to adhere them directly to that background paper, so I created kind of a matte frame to go underneath it. That way I could keep it mobile as I added other elements to the design. That piece of paper, by the way, is from Studio Calico. Here I'm adding the first of the photos, and what I did was I just put a little piece of double stick tape behind it just to keep the picture mobile. I wasn't quite sure how to best approach adding the photos behind the frame, and so I just kind of eyeballed it, moving them around here and there, and then shifting the frame as needed. And so over time, all 6 photos were added, and then I just started to embellish them. So the first addition was this candy wrapper. We recently celebrated Chinese New Year, the Year of the Horse, which is kind of a big deal here in Hawaii, not just China, because we have a huge Asian population here. And so at school we handed out these little good luck candies. And so one of the pieces that I had, I saved the wrapper from it and worked that in. That candy wrapper adds a nice little reflective element to the page, as does the gold square that I just added from the Crate Paper Ephemera pack. The next addition is a die-cut piece from Dear Lizzie. Although the full statement says, busy being happy, I only worked in the word busy. So sad, I know. After that, I reached for my Crate Paper Style Board labels, and the horse caught my eye because it is, as I mentioned earlier, the Year of the Horse. And we've been talking a lot about that lately here. And so I worked in that little bitty sticker that has a little horse on it. I had one more little frame to fill, and so since one of my currents had to do with the music that I've been listening to lately, I decided to cut out a little cassette from a sheet of boys' rule paper from crepe paper. The more I looked at it, the more that pink piece just didn't work. It seemed kind of visually jarring to me. And so what I did was I replaced it with a vellum piece. These three circles I just trimmed so that they would better fit the frame. And once I inserted them, you can see that a more harmonious color scheme was achieved. The problem with the pink is nothing else really was, so it didn't work. But this does. If you recall that piece of crepe paper that I mentioned earlier that had all the stamping on it, that paper served as inspiration for what you'll see me start to do here. I love that idea of stamping the same date over and over and over on a paper, and so that's exactly what I did here. And it was quite fitting because the whole idea is currents, right? What am I doing now? What's happening lately? And since all the photos were taken on the same day and the journaling was written on that same day, the idea here was to reinforce that by stamping the date repeatedly. Rather than just use one color, though, I went back to the idea of the color scheme, the blues, the purples, the pinks, and then I just alternated colors, localizing them to one area of the pattern paper. You probably don't want to watch me stamp this paper 100 million times, so we'll just skip ahead, shall we? Flash forward and you can see me adding the finishing touches, and you can definitely see where that crepe paper pattern influenced this for sure. At this point, it kind of felt like I was in the home stretch. I knew just where I was putting my journaling cards, and it was just a matter of putting the actual layout together. One of the issues, though, is that with the addition of the stamping, the design itself felt sort of uneven to me, kind of heavier on the left than on the right. And so as I added the journaling cards, I started to think about what I could do to kind of balance the layout a little better. And I had the idea to add some stamping to the left side of the layout. The first stamp that I used was a clock stamp from the October Afternoon Daily Flash Milk Money collection. I really like the idea of interconnected circles, so I tried to have the circles as close together as I could possibly place them, some touching, some just nearby. And so I had them going off the side of the page just to create a better sense of flow or continuity. The second stamp is just a plain circle stamp from the Lily Bee We Are Family collection. And so I just followed suit with what I had done earlier with the clocks and tried to place the circles as close together as I possibly could. I alternated colors, again just in keeping with the overall color scheme. Once I finished stamping, I embellished a few of the circles with stickers and chipboard shapes, just to enhance the design a bit more, to add some color and variety to it. The stickers that I used are from Crepe Paper, Studio Calico, and October Afternoon. These puffy stickers add a really nice bit of dimension to the page. I then added a vellum circle from Crepe Paper, as well as a metal flare badge from Two Peas in a Bucket. Finally, it was time for me to place the journaling on the page, and so I just placed them in a block format, 2 at the top, 2 at the bottom. For the title, I added a vellum die cut piece that says Today, and backed it with a piece of pattern paper so that the word would show through more clearly. As you'll recall, the mood board inspired the placement and the format of the journaling. I also noticed that little piece of tape at the top of one of the cards, and so I decided to mimic that by using washi tape. The tapes that I chose are from October Afternoon. Both of them are from the new Daily Flash collections. So one of them is more of like a old school handwriting paper, and the other is kind of a red polka dot. Although the page was reasonably complete, usually at this point I go kind of back and forth. I'm trying to decide, is it really done? Can I add any more? Are there any kind of naked spaces on the page? And so I added a few chipboard pieces here and there from Studio Calico and Crepe Paper. Some of them went in the little stamped circles, and another I actually just added to the photo block. The finishing touch was to use the letters M and E from a sheet of crepe paper chipboard pieces. I struggled a little bit to figure out where they should go on the title block, but I finally figured it out that they needed to go right alongside today. And there it is. Me, today. This is my page of currents. The real value of a layout like this is that it is authentically you, and it's you reflecting on you. It's you in the moment, sharing a peek at your preoccupations, at your delights, at where you are and who you are right now. The other thing about pages like this is that they're just fun to read and look at. So please, be sure to share yours with me at 2 peas in a bucket. I look forward to seeing it. Thanks for joining me for this week's Storytellers.